have on the show this morning Wayne Duvenage from OUTA, and the saga goes on, it carries on. I don't know if this is ever going to go away. Let's hear what Wayne has to say about the whole issue around e-tolls and all of those ongoing accounts that I receive. I think it's sitting now close to over 100,000. Does that mean I'm going to be locked up one of the days? Wayne Duvenage, good morning. Welcome to the program. Great to have you on the show.
Nice to be with you today. Yeah, look, lots of people are still getting these notices. We're aware of that. So, yeah, you want me to jump straight in? And just
Absolutely. And the one thing that worries me as well is we're still in lockdown. We're in level 1. We're kind of returning to normal slowly but surely, I hope. But I'm wondering about ongoing accounts that we're receiving, knowing that half the population were out of work or didn't earn an income. Where do we stand with that story? That probably is a different issue. I don't know. But it seems that the saga seems to be continuing.
Yes. So if we go back, the bills that people are getting are obviously outstanding bills from when people were traveling and have run up a lot of, accounts over the years. You know, the scheme has been alive for over 6 years now. And what we've seen is a massive resistance, a very successful civil disobedience campaign by the public against a scheme that was just fraught with so much that is wrong, not only administratively, because it is extremely challenged when we get wrong invoices and that, but also it was introduced, as far as we're concerned, unlawfully, and there's a test case which government has put on hold now, not us. And so we are standing our ground on the fact that this scheme is unlawful. We know it's fraught with corruption because of the tendered costs that were very different to the contracted costs, the road construction project itself as well. And so what civil society has done is just said, look, not on our watch. We're not going to participate in a scheme that is grossly inefficient. It is irrational, and on many fronts, this is why civil society has a role to play, to tell government, if you're going to introduce policies that cannot work, that don't have the buy-in of the people, that didn't involve the people, which constitutionally should have, then they must be treated with the contempt and the disrespect that the public has shown on this matter. And so what you have is government hasn't pulled the plug yet. They have acknowledged they need to find an alternative and a solution. They have stopped summonsing people, although you are still getting your bills in the post, and you're getting these, what they look like quite legal bills, final demand,
yes,
because that does frighten people to go and pay. And they're hoping that does. But there are no more summonses. There haven't been since March last year. So 18 months or more have gone past without any summonses. And then the Credit Bureau Association of South Africa has also told SANRAL that nobody will be blacklisted as a result of not paying their e-toll bills. Now, that's a very good thing for society, because one of the worries was, well, if I don't pay my bills and SANRAL comes after me, can my credit ratings be impacted? Well, the short answer is no, they won't be. The Credit Bureau Association has said so. So where we stand right now, as OUTA has said and promoted out there, is that you have the right to stand your ground. And if you're ever summoned, we will, if you mandate us to, take this matter into a test case scenario and defend your case for as long as we have funds to do so in a court of law. We believe that case is extremely strong. And as we said, government have pulled out, which is a very telling sign. And I think government have realized the scheme is unworkable. It is defunct. Doesn't mean to say they can't get the funds from society to pay for the roads, because there are many other mechanisms, ones that they've been using for many years now. And in short, if I get those letters, I throw them in the bin.
Well, I do too. So where to from here? I mean, OUTA has been fighting a really long, hard fight as far as e-tolls is concerned. Do you see the light at the end of at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And then once, hopefully, this issue has been put to bed, are you then thinking of possibly tackling the toll plazas, or is that totally different matter out of your hands? What else are you planning to bed down as far as corruption and
Great.
unfair taxes is concerned? Because this
Yeah.
is a tax in a sense.
Yes, it is. So look, the long and short of the e-toll saga is that we believe government will pull the plug. They've got no option but to pull the plug. You know, when you operate at 80% inefficiency, in other words, only 20% compliance, you can't even pay for the collection processes at the moment. The tenders that are going out now for e-tolls to be renewed is not so much for e-tolls, but for the use of the transaction clearinghouse mechanism that they've set up. So as far as e-tolls goes, while it is still in law, in place, we believe government has been forced and will shortly make the decision to pull the plug. But we've been saying that for a long time. We've engaged with government. We've made presentations. We've done position papers. And I think they're just slow off the mark. We believe that we're going to make the decision and announcement in March this year. And then the pandemic arrived and put a lot of things on hold. And this was one of those decisions. We don't see the e-tolling scheme living on. And we also don't see government's ability to get the funds that are outstanding from society. And we know that because they've written those outstanding accounts off in their books, which they have to do if they cannot demonstrate that they're going to be able to collect that money. That is normal accounting law or rules. On the long distance toll plazas, and I think here's where I must make this very clear, that we don't object to public-private partnerships, private funding of big infrastructure projects like this, so long as they're workable. And the long-distance toll plazas are workable. It's not a drive now, pay later scheme that relies on policing systems and that. It's a very simple system. The boom stays down until you pay, and then when you pay, the boom lifts and you go. So they've got 100% compliance. And it works around the world that way. The electronic tolling system also works in other parts of the world, but it doesn't work here for a lot of the reasons I've explained. One of them is that e-Natus is so outdated that if you sell your car, chances are you will get the next owner's e-toll bills because they just do not update their systems properly. Long-distance toll plazas are being challenged by OUTA as well. We have a project called concessionaires. Those are concession projects. There are 3 of them, N3TC. There's the track concession and the Bakwena concessions. What we are challenging there is transparency. There's been a lack of transparency as to how much money those private companies are earning. We believe there's far too much money that is being earned, that more of that money needs to be allocated back to the state, in other words, to SANRAL. And the tariffs of all those long-distance toll plazas must be coming down, or certainly not going up in the future. But until we get the information, which sadly SANRAL believes they don't have to give to us, and they are so wrong there because we pay those bills, not SANRAL. It is a state asset. We have every right for transparency there. And sadly, our state-owned institution just believes that they can be a lack of transparency is the way that they've been playing this game. We're not going to tolerate that. We are actually going to court as we speak. In the coming months, we've laid the papers and charges to get all the information pertaining to those toll contracts. And then we've done another 185 projects, a lot of them around state capture, corruption. We've just launched another project this week of extending the driver's license from 5 years renewal to 10 years.
Good on you.
And we're engaging with
somebody
on that.
Somebody was making a lot of money out of that.
Yeah, look, I mean, not only that, government is so inefficient. Before the COVID pandemic came, it was very difficult to get your license renewed. Absolutely. And again, the government demonstrates its inability to administer simple systems. And what we're saying to government, we've done research around the world. The driver's license period lasts for 10 years. You might have to go for eye tests every 5 years and have proof of that in your glove box. But let's catch up with the rest of the world. Let's make it easier to renew your license. Let's get, this demerit system is like the next e-toll matter, this R2 system. It's fraught with inefficiencies. sadly, because the demerit system, again, is a good system. It works around the world, but it's just going to fail here. They haven't got it right. They didn't consult properly. So we're also challenging that as well. So lots of projects in the outer fold in this space.
Let's just go back a few steps, Wayne, and we're talking e-tolls. Somebody has to pay. There are huge amounts of outstanding bills that will need to be paid. You indicated that the monies can be paid out of other taxes. In the past, you and I have spoken, and I think you mentioned something along the lines of, was it the petrol levies or something?
Yeah.
Did you suggest that, that the money should come out of the petrol levies? What happens now? Is that still doable, number one? And number two, with petrol prices going up and down, can government then use that as an excuse to say it impacts on our revenues? When the petrol price goes down, we lose X amount of capital. Yeah. I'm just kind of wondering about that.
I can answer that. Government doesn't lose anything when the petrol price goes up and down, because about 50% of the fuel price that you and I pay is made up of levies, fuel levies, road accident fund levies, and all other charges and fees and tariffs that are applied to the wholesale storage, the retail margins, the pipeline levies. It's very high, actually. It's a big percentage. Which is why when the international fuel price dropped, remember recently at the start of the pandemic, the international fuel price dropped a lot, almost down to zero for a few days. But we didn't get the benefit of that drop because so much of our fuel price is burdened with these taxes and fuel levies. Now, what we've said to government in the past is that this funding of national infrastructure is an ongoing debate. It goes right down to infrastructure that's put in place to get commuters to and from work as rail, buses use roads, and in seaborne countries and countries with rivers, it's by water as well. But here it's mainly road and rail and monorail systems, BRT systems, Gautrain, and others. And it's a combination of those that you need to do to get people to and from places of work. And those should not be subjected to user pays mechanisms in the way of roads, because infrastructure like roads is very difficult in an urban environment to put a boom down plaza, and it's very difficult to chase the money, as we've seen in e-tolls. So what does government do in urban infrastructure for roads? They use taxes. They load the fuel levy for that, and they've done so. When the Gauteng freeway project started with its upgrade in 2008 and 9 and 10, the fuel levy was just over R1 per litre. It is now R3.50, round about there, per litre of fuel. That means that they've increased it by over R2.35 to 40 cents. That is a massive increase when all we required to fund the bonds that we borrowed to upgrade this freeway was 10 cents in the fuel levy. 10 cents. They've got R2.50 in this period. So we believe the money is there. It flows to National Treasury. They just need to allocate the R2 billion a year to pay off that bond. And had they done so, when we suggested they do so right in the beginning, this bond would have been paid off as we sit here today. You and I sit here today. And they could have lowered the fuel levy by 10 cents now. And sadly, they didn't do that. It's never too late to undo a bad decision and introduce this. It just gets more and more difficult because interest is piling up. So maybe it's 15 cents or 20 cents now. But that's a sad mistake that government has made. That didn't listen to their citizens on these suggestions. And now, unfortunately, we have to pay the price. And it's going to have to come out of the taxes because it cannot come out of an e-toll collection mechanism. It just doesn't work, and the government knows that.
How come they're not listening to voices like yours? Because certainly there are people in government who agree with you, agree 101%. How come the people that need to make the decisions are not listening? Is this all to do with the sick saga of state capture?
Yeah.
And do you guys at OUTA, are you planning to play a role as far as state capture is concerned, trying to get back monies from the Guptas and whoever else has fleeced their pockets and have skipped the country?
Absolutely. Yes, look, sadly, if you go back over the last 12, 13, 14 years, the state moved into a very narrow focus on its own agendas, its internalized agendas, and it lost sight of the need to engage meaningfully with society, which is a constitutional right, which is why when they don't do it, we need as society to show them the pain of those decisions that don't involve the people. And that's exactly what happened on e-tolls. So we do sense that government is changing its tune in recent times since the Ramaphosa administration has come in. We see that and feel that because we are doing far more presentations in Parliament these days.
Wow.
They are asking for submissions. When we make them, they're calling us in to give input on our reasons and rationale for our suggestions. But sadly, it doesn't always happen. Now, let me give you an example. The R2 matter. R2, this is the adjudication administrative function in the traffic fines space, a national one. They haven't done the public engagement process properly. We have attended as many of those as we can. We have done a position paper on this. We have asked them to meet with us. They've refused to meet with us. Eventually, they engage with us, but very scantily at a high level. We've asked the Minister of Transport just to hear and listen to why R2 will fail. It will fail. We know that. And yet they've pressed ahead. So we have now engaged the courts. We have approached the courts to say we have to get them to stop the system, not because we're opposed, again, to the technology and the use of more efficient ways to get traffic fines paid. But this scheme has got less to do with road safety. It's got everything to do with making money.
Absolutely.
And administratively, just like e-tolls administratively, it's going to collapse. It's not functional. It's not practical. So there are many instances where government is changing its tune and listening to society a bit more, but there's still examples like R2 and others where they continue to, just think that they can do what they want. And because there's the sad notion in government that, well, we put it into law, therefore it works, and therefore you must just obey. And then when it fails, they say, well, why is everybody ignoring the law? Well, people ignore the law when A, it's irrational law, B, when it's unadministerable law, and they can get away with it with no repercussions. And that's when government suffers a crisis of legitimacy. And our government is in a crisis of legitimacy. It is being questioned. But we are seeing a turn. This week's arrests, Richard Ndlule, now spending his first nights in jail. He was above reproach during the Zuma administration. Vincent Smith handing himself over this morning to the courts. Yesterday's arrests of the asbestos heist people. There's just so much starting to happen. The rule of law seems to be flowing again. This is stuff we've got to celebrate.
How is OUTA? Are you guys involved at all as far as state capture is concerned? Are you planning to be involved?
Absolutely. We've been involved since 2017. We presented to Parliament a book called No Room to Hide on state capture on Jacob Zuma, trying to get him removed from the parliamentary processes in that stage, not wanting to wait for the elections, which then came, and he was removed at the end of 2017, but by the party first and then through the elections. But more than that, we've made numerous submissions to the Zonda Commission over the last couple of years. We have laid charges against numerous politicians and people in state-owned entities, the Brian Molefes, the Kukumochelas of the world, the Anush Singhs. We laid the complaint with SAICA. It was Anush Singh, and he was found guilty by them very recently. Batabili Dlamini and Faith Mutambi. We've laid many charges with the police. Sadly, during state capture, they were mothballed. But all of that information now is coming to the fore, and we believe cases being put together at the NPA. We've done a lot of research into the Transnet matter. We've written to the Chinese authorities to get the money back from them, given a lot of this information to the Hawks and the NPA and the SIU. So we've been very, very involved in it. In fact, I think there must be probably 60 projects that we've implemented over the last number of years that are state capture related.
When you talk Transnet, you are talking about those trains that were too high or something?
No, that was
They
the
were not.
Prasa matter.
Oh, is that the
trains,
Prasa matter?
yeah, the
Whatever
trains that.
happened to that?
Well, they've been handed back. There has been action taken. There's a lot more action still needs to be taken there. I think they found a new home where those trains do fit the rail infrastructure of other countries. It would still cost the country a lot. But the big problem with Transnet is those 1064, the 1064 locomotive deal, that it was overpriced at 39 million, and then the price was pushed up to 39 billion, pushed up to 54 billion as a result of allowing about 20%, so about 13 billion rands worth of middleman fees. This is just corruption money that then started to flow offshore through the regiments and to sequester shelf companies that were set up in Hong Kong, and the Chinese and Transnet authorities with Brian Molefe, Anush Singh, the king players there, and other businesses just siphoning and looting billions of rands from this country. That case, we believe, is quite advanced with the NPA, and there are going to be a lot of people, after seeing the arrests that are taking place this week, we believe there are a lot of very wealthy people who used to occupy positions of high power that are going to be sleeping uneasy.
As far as state capture is concerned, do you think that the wheels are kind of moving rather slowly? Is it because there's lots of intensive investigation that needs to happen that we find people like myself always seem to think, has that matter been forgotten? Has it been swept under the carpet? Is it ever going to surface? Are those people going to get away with murder?
No, I think they're going to go to jail. We've been frustrated as society has been in the slow pace of change. But I can tell you now that the NPA, the Hawks, the SIU, the Assets Forfeiture Unit, all these organisms of the rule of law have been decimated during the Zuma era. When I say decimated, their skills have been lost, their forensic audit capacities and skill sets. A lot of those people have been lost to the private sector, to the investigations industries and so forth. So they've got a lot of work to do to build their capacity, and we see that is happening now. That's why it's been very slow. But this week's arrest shows that things are happening, and those people implicated in state capture over the last number of years, those cases will not be swept under the carpet. We will not allow them to be swept under the carpet, as won't others and NGOs and civil action movements. And we will continue to hold the state's feet to the fire on those matters. Sadly, a number of the people have already left the country. Salim Essa, the Guptas, we've got to work hard now with the state to ensure that they are extradited back to this country to answer. I think in the long run, a lot of this will happen, will get done, so long as the president and the powers that be stay true to the course of fighting corruption. We believe this current president is doing that, albeit slowly. But if you look back, it's like a big ship, you can't feel it turning. But when you look back at the wake, you can see the stuff that has happened. The Zonda Commission, changing the commission's terms so that this information can be used in court. The appointments of the NPA, Shamila Batoy and Hermione Crenier, SARS with Edward Kieswetter, moving Tom Moyane out. All of these things are now coming to the fore and playing good in the fight against corruption. I think those people will be held accountable, but not tomorrow, not the next day, but it's happening now.
Finally, the saga with SAA, how do you see that playing out? What would be the right move as regards South African Airways?
The right move would be to liquidate it, for the states to become an enabler and not an owner or a shareholder in an airline. Many countries around the world have abandoned the need to own airlines. Obviously, we want the state to set up and enable a locally based international airline. So the state should be licensing, as we've done on the local market, a lot of good airlines flying in South Africa, far cheaper than SA, because they know how to compete. So the government must get out of the business of business, especially if business is a competitive industry like airlines, and they should rather be an enabler and maybe have a small stakeholding in a locally based international licensed airline that flies 5 or 6 strategic routes, maybe 1 or 2 on the regional basis, 5 or 6 on an international basis, and not even fly on the local market. Let the private industry handle the local market. And then the state should also have good exit packages for the staff that have worked so hard and so many years with this airline, which was unfortunately trashed by government because they just have not done it properly.
And Dudu Mayeni, what do we say about her?
She's already been declared a delinquent director. We put a lot of work into that case. Those facts have been handed over now to the NPA. She needs to answer to those in a criminal charge as well. And we believe Dudu Mayeni, like so many others, that thought and that act with impunity and were very brazen in their absolute atrocious behavior, need to spend time in jail, and we believe she will.
Finally, Wayne, you and OUTA are fighting the good fight for us South African citizens, hardworking taxpayers. What do we do to have your back, to watch your back?
Well, thanks for that question. We are not funded by big business. We are not funded by government and international donor organizations. We're able to employ people purely on the fact that we've got thousands of ordinary citizens, individuals, that go onto our website at outa.co.za, and they just sign up and they load their bank details for 100 Rand or 150 Rand or even 50 Rand donation, whatever they choose to come off their accounts or their credit cards. And the more we get like that, the more we're able to employ. For every 500 new donors we get a little team of another investigator and another legal case builder. So we've got 45 staff. We wish we had 145 staff. Wow. Because with more we can do more. And I think that's we want people to own OUTA. It's their organization. It's not ours. We're a non-profit. We're hardworking. We employ professional people. We pay market-related salaries so that we have the continuity of these people on our teams. They're extremely passionate, extremely professional, and we are just so uplifted by the fact that we've got tens of thousands of citizens just helping us do our job by making these small contributions. And there's this saying by Edward Burke that the biggest mistake is made by the person who thinks that they give nothing because they feel they can only give a little. Don't ever feel that your 80 Rand a month is too little. It's not, because crowdfunding is a powerful tool. Absolutely. Every bit counts. Come on board, join OUTA, and I assure you we'll make you proud. You'll get our newsletter, and you'll see a lot of us in the news.
Absolutely, and may you grow from strength to strength. And thank you so very much for the amazing work that you guys are doing. God bless.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. All the best. Okay.
Right, we're going for an ad break, and when we get back, we're going to be talking Bokashi Foods or Bokashi brand. About, obviously, Bronwyn Jones is the owner of Bokashi Brands, and she's going to tell us about why they are so environmentally concerned about food wastage.